What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the COASTER-net Dispatch. I'm, of course, Andrew Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois, joined once again by Jeff Goodman. Jeff, how's tonight going?
I'm a little bored. I'm a little bored. All I can do is think about like getting out and doing stuff. I'm sure everybody's in the same boat, but I thought you and me take a walk down memory lane today.
Yeah. So we were looking at a whole bunch of stories over the last year or so about like different safety things coming into mind, and some of the big stories I think that pop out at us, the comfort collars on all these rides nowadays. Comfort collars on the Premier Skyrockets, adding the comfort collars to the new SeaWorld ride. We see Cedar Fair putting seat belts on the B&M coasters. That's a few years ago now already. Stuff that, when we were growing up, 10, 20 years ago, just adding all these extra redundant safety features on rides. And I guess at some level, a lot of it's psychological, where even SeaWorld has come out and said that the comfort collars are more psychological than for safety. But you look at like responses on social media to things like the comfort collars, and when they're like, oh, you have to have those, how else am I going to be, secured in the ride if I don't have that comfort collar? And then like you kind of see like the RMC stuff, that's exactly opposite of that with Steel Vengeance, and you're flipping upside down and there's no restraint on you whatsoever. So we kind of thought like maybe we'll look at some of these things about how things have changed in the last maybe 5 to 10 years and how they're really different, and talk about maybe how it was kind of cooler back then. I don't know. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean that was the original idea. Was I was thinking about when I first started going to parks, and how it's so different than it is now. Um, the first rides that I used to go on that I felt like were big rides were the log flumes, because they had pretty low height barriers. They don't have restraints. You know what I mean? Like there's really nothing to them other than the fact that there's no airtime, right?
Yeah.
You go around curves, you bounce around. There's nothing to make you come out of your seat really, except for that drop. But the drop's pretty like well pitched. That's not an issue.
And you think about it, and like log flumes, if there's any one ride type that maybe has changed the most over the last 20 to 30 years, it's the log flume, and it's basically died because of the safety restraints that you look at all these traditional log flumes. And my log flume was Whitewater Landing at Cedar Point. We'd ride that with the family, and it scared me. It legitimately scared me, because it would take you all the way up top. So you go up this first big hill, and then you start doing some S curves up there, and you weren't moving very fast, but you were pretty high up, and you're looking over, and there's nothing to the side of you. There's no like fencing or railing, or there's railings every now and then, but it's like, oh, if this water fills up a little bit too much, we're going right over the edge here. Like there was a legitimate sense of like fear, I think, on a lot of the log flumes. And once again, there's nothing holding you in. Like you said, you can do whatever you want. You can, splash in the water if you want to.
Yeah.
And then later on, you can't stick your hand out because you'll cut your hand off somehow. But the log flume has basically died because they haven't figured out a way to do it safely, I guess. And you look at something like Shoot the Rapids and the complete failure that was. And because Jeff, now, I was the first guy on Shoot the Rapids. I was part of the first, I was part of the first rider auction. And I'll tell you what, this is a funny story. So we go sit down at the restaurant to talk about what the day's going to look like, because we're doing the first rider stuff. All the media is there. It's the media day. It's the media preview. We're picking seats on the boat. And for Shoot the Rapids, like Dick Kinzel's there, all the bigwigs are there. And the idea was the more money you raised in the auction, the more the better seat you would get, right? So like these people were picking, front row stuff. They raised like $5,000 or whatever. And of course they get the front row. Makes sense. So we get to the boat area, And we already know that Shoot the Rapids was not doing well. This event was pushed back. It was supposed to be on opening day, got pushed back. Now we're at the end of June already now, and this ride's finally ready to open. And we've heard all the stories about how it was not doing well at all. And so we get to the station, and the ride ops are like, okay, you're going to sit here, you're going to sit here, because they're balancing the boat with weight.
Right.
And the guy's like, screw that. Like, we ain't sitting. I said, he's like, I raised $5,000 to sit in the front row, you know? And here it is, you know, now you're telling me, who only raised like maybe $150 to $200 to go sit in the front row. And I'm like, dude, I said to the ride op, I looked at him, I said, dude, I'm not getting involved in here. I'm not sitting in the front row. He raised all the money. He deserves the front row. And so eventually they called somebody up, and they, you know, they put him in the front row, and that boat was completely unbalanced, and we're like sinking in the water. We're like floating as slow as you can go. You know, it was fun drops and all, but you know, we were taking on this much water in the boat. I'm like, this is kind of ridiculous. And part of it was how they designed the trough. Part of it was the weight of the boat, and all these extra safety restraints. And not to bring up a bad subject, but when that boat flipped over, those safety restraints were the main reason why I think people, you know, were in a lot of danger. It's because the boat flipped over, and now you're stuck in those seats. You could argue, well, maybe a lot of people were saved because of it, because when it flipped over, they didn't fall out and drown. I don't know, but you're underwater. I just don't know with all these water rides and safety restraints, and we see all the, you know, the raft rides now disappearing because there's no seat belts and kids are standing up. And you know, we saw in England, was it England, where the girl fell out of the raft and fell into the water because she was standing on the raft. So
Sure.
yeah, so and then of course in Australia we saw the raft flipped over completely, and then, you know, kill everyone that way when it got into the mechanism of the ramp going up. So that's completely unavoidable. But yeah, so like water rides, I don't know, are they a dying breed now because there's no safety anymore?
A little bit, but I got to be honest. When I see like an arrow log flume, I kind of want to go on it for nostalgia's sake sometimes, because like those are the ones that I always think about. I know the first one that I went on was Desperado. That's a Great Escape. That was like my first big one. And I remember during like the meandering parts of the ride where it's a little boring, there'd be ride ops stationed along the trough, because, you know, they've got the block system. It wasn't electronic back then. It was people sitting there next to a switch under an umbrella, you know, like with like a foot switch operating these things. Typically they have like a walkie-talkie, and that was their safety feature. So, you know, something that probably really wouldn't fly at all anymore. But, you know, they used to like, you know, hype up the boat a little bit. I remember giving like high fives, and, you know, they would high five you when the log went by. That definitely wouldn't happen anymore.
No touching anymore. No touching in roller coasters. No touching. You know, I had told the story about Gemini the other night.
Yeah.
How back in the day, you know, giving high fives to the other coaster car, and now you try and do that now, and people look at you strange. It's just kind of, it's a different mindset. It's just, and I get safety. Don't let me fool you into thinking that I don't think we need safety in theme parks, because people getting hurt in theme parks when they're having fun is awful. But I don't know, is it all that unsafe? Like, I think about Cedar Point and how, you know, back in the day, you know, the running to the first ride was what everyone did. And it's kind of come back a little bit with Steel Vengeance.
It's every place though, really.
You
now
know,
you've got like a little reminder, you know, a person with like a flag being like, can't run past me.
Yeah, like it's well, that kind of stuff was irritating. Like I remember going to Kings Island my first time, and exactly that. The guy was leading the procession over to Diamondback, or leading the procession over to I think it was probably Diamondback at the time. Banshee wasn't open yet. But I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, what the hell? Like, let us go. Like, okay, let the fat people in the back, and I'm fat too. If I can keep up with everyone, I deserve that, you know, third spot on the train.
I should be able to cut half the line if I can keep up.
But it's like, oh yeah, you can't run anymore. I remember being up on Raptor's station. So, you know, ERT was going on for Raptor at 9 a.m. or whatever, and the park was about to open at 10 for everyone else. And like the ride ops are joking, okay, here we go, the running of the bulls is about to start, and like they all stop and watch the people run to the first ride. It was like a thing. Everyone knew it was happening. Everyone was okay with it. And then, because you got some soccer mom who doesn't like to be run over with her baby in her carriage, but she has no problem running you over on the midway with that same carriage. Don't get me started on that. I think that was in the Tournament of Terrible last year. Women with, or not even women, but just people in general with baby carriages not moving out of your way. So, yeah, but it's just like running in the parks, and then it's like we look at things, and we look at a thing like Dueling Dragons, right? And Dueling Dragons, man, what a great ride, and for its downfall to be what made it so special. And you can listen to Universal all you want, but honestly, without those lawsuits, isn't Dueling Dragons still open today?
Maybe. I mean, once they put those nets up, and then they unsynchronized the dueling, it's like you kind of like feel like, well, they might as not be there. I mean, we've all been on like a racing coaster when it doesn't race, if they're only operating one side, and it's like it all of a sudden becomes like the lamest ride ever. It's the racing part, it's the dueling part that was fun. I know, like near me is Lightning Racer. It's not the best roller coaster, but because it duels, it's fun. If it was two tracks that were like in different states, they would both suck. It's that they're right there and dueling. And if they ever do that to Lightning Racer, if they like unsynchronize it, that's it. It's not a fun ride anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then like they're adding netting up on every single coaster. Everywhere you go now, there's netting. It's almost shocking when there's not netting. You're like, whoa, I'm surprised they didn't put netting up there. And I guess like there's no harm in that. There's no harm in putting up netting all over the place. It's a little weird. It prevents all the photographers from getting better shots, I think. But I think it sends, to me, it sends this message of, I don't know what it is. It's a message of, oh, these are inherently unsafe, maybe.
Well, danger's fun, but not if it's unsafe, right?
Yeah,
that's the whole premise of an amusement park.
And I'm like, and I guess you get to the whole cell phone thing that we Danny and I and you and I, we had this whole debate,
yeah,
last year as to at one point is there too much safety. You look at Steel Vengeance, we got metal detectors, we got stamp systems, we got and it's like, at what point is there, and no one, like I said, no one wants to get hurt on a roller coaster. And there were a handful of stories of people getting hit in the head with cell phones, and I have a whole theory, and maybe we'll do a show on this later. Maybe this is a whole nother show. I think we're going in the exact opposite way of safety, of especially with cell phones on rides. I think we need to allow them all. And I feel that there's steps that you can allow that to happen. Just like you allow sunglasses on many of the rides, like Dragster requires, the strap if you have sunglasses. I think the same thing needs to be done for cell phones. And I think we should go the exact opposite way and say cell phones on everything, because people are doing it anyway. So, but
yeah, I think when they make rules like that incentivize you to not pay attention to the safety rules, it has like a slippery effect to other rules. And yeah, I agree. Like it's just not a good path, because it's not something people want to do. I think that the Thunderbolt at Luna Park is not the best roller coaster, but that's the best system I've seen. They basically have like a coat check, and like right before you walk in the station, they give you a little cubby, like a little tray. You drop all your stuff in there. He like gives you a number. You get on the ride, you come off, he hands it right back to you. It's free. It's right before you get on the train. You know what I mean? Like it's like it alleviates all of the things that people say that they don't like about those kind of systems.
I'm trying to remember who it was, and oh man, this is gonna kill me, because I was on Facebook the other day, and I saw somebody post a story, because Cedar Point was selling all of those bricks for the front of the park, those legacy bricks, and
I know what you're talking about. It was Michael.
Was it?
Yeah, I think it is. She said hands up is how we do our memories.
Yes.
It was actually his daughter's brick, and that's Michael from Cedar Point Nation.
Yeah.
So his daughter made a brick, and they said it violated their safety. It was against their safety rules on, I guess, our ride at least. So
and it's crazy because that's like whenever they do promotional photos and stuff. If you look at the promotional photos, like PR photos, everyone has their hands down. I remember being there for Coasting for Kids. Another thing that they did. I'll go on that story in a second.
sure.
But when they were taking photos for the event, they're like, nope, these next 3 runs, we're gonna have our hands down because we have to have our hands down. So that's a rule that, like you said, that is on the books, but people completely ignore all the time. Coasting for Kids and marathoning roller coasters, like, my God, I spent an entire afternoon, multiple days in different years, riding Gemini. That I think the first year we rode it like 100 times in one day. And then I think the last time that they held the event that I went to it, I think we rode like 120 something times Gemini in one day. And now they're trying to tell me, when I go to Coasting for Kids the next year, I went to Canada's Wonderland, and like, well, you're not supposed to ride more than twice in a row. That when you ride twice in a row, you got to get off and then get back on. And then like Kings Island, for coaster stock. One of the reasons I stopped going to coaster stock was the fact that after every single ride, you have to get off the train and walk all the way around. And I'm like, in my mind, I can go to a park on a not busy day and have that same experience that day and not have to pay an extra event fee. I can use my pass, get into Kings Island on, a weekday in May, and walk around and have the same exact experience. That when I go to an event, one of my expectations is, and one of the reasons why I go back to events, is because I get to marathon stuff. I don't have to stand up. And I've done 15 to 20 laps on Maverick without standing up. I've done 100 laps on Gemini in a day. And there might be, I don't think there's any health effects. I never saw anyone pass out. People should know their own limitations at some level. But it seems like they're adding in that safety stuff. And, my wife rode Iron Dragon one morning 15 times in a row. She doesn't even like roller coasters. And she rode it 15 times without standing up.
If you're a doctor, comment down below. Tell us if we're wrong, because we'll listen to you if you're a doctor.
Well, and there's a lot of people, like my buddies were sending me, stories about these researchers researching health effects. And yeah, I'm guessing you could find somebody that's going to have a health effect after writing something pretty intense multiple times in a day. Like I'm sure there's something out there that someone has a fluke thing or someone. But to say that it's the norm and to stop it for everyone, I think that's everything we're saying here. Is accidents can happen anywhere. The train could fly off the track for all we know. That doesn't mean we should stop, riding roller coasters.
I think it means that you're not to be trusted. They think that you're going to puke because you've been on it too long, and they need you to take a break.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, and like the one kid in Canada was like, "Whoa, in Canada we value the safety," and I'm like, okay, Behemoth is a pretty tame ride here, kid. Gemini is a pretty tame ride. I rode that 125 times. If I didn't die after 125 laps on Gemini, quite a bit of bruising though, mind you, bruising in spots that you would not expect, because those arrow seats are pretty hard after 125 laps. But it's just like, it's safety to a point. Like if I start feeling sick, guess what? I'm gonna get off the ride. I'm not gonna stay on the ride till I die. Like I don't know. It's just like, maybe that is my American in me saying I don't need Big Daddy telling me what to do all the time. I can make decisions for myself, and people can react accordingly. Like the only thing that you could possibly hurt somebody else in by what you do is the running in the park if you knock someone over, I guess. But people on their cell phones all the time knock people over either. So what the hell?
Can't be worse than basketballs.
But exactly. Like you're hurting my ears, man. Like come on. But it's like, I guess, like where are we going? What else are, and maybe that's the mystique of RMC a little bit. Some people don't like RMC. A lot of people do. And maybe that's the mystique of RMC, is that they kind of spit in the face of safety standards.
Hey, they're They're rugged, out there. But I got to say, my butt has never felt more in a ride than when I'm locked into an RMC.
Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
It's just really just it feels like if something came out, my lower half would definitely stay.
Yeah, it's not like riding Magnum where you're up over the seat almost, and it feels like you are going to fall out if it wasn't for that stuff. And it's just like I don't know. I part of the reason why I want to ride a roller coaster is I want that legitimate fear of hey, I could fall out here. There's times on Magnum that you're running through that at night, and it's like, whoa, this thing's really rocking tonight. It's like, oh, maybe I should hang on a little bit. Or you're riding like a Sky Rush or a Steel Vengeance, and those rides are actively trying to throw you out of the ride. It's like that's what I'm there for. Like the big drops are fun. The the airtime's great, but it's that pushing that border of what is safe and what is unsafe, I think.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of restraint systems change. I mean, the premier rides had the over the shoulders, and then they didn't. Plenty of wooden coasters have changed their trains or changed their restraint systems. I remember riding Thunderhawk at Dorney many times. Is it Thunderhawk?
Yeah,
Thunderhawk. Yeah, at Dorney many times, and they used to have the buzz bars. They just redid the trains. Now they don't. Now they have individual ratcheting bars. Yeah. I was telling you before the show, Comet used to be like a really wild ride. It has buzz bars. It didn't used to have the seatbelts. I think if Comet still had just the buzz bars, people might be talking about Comet the same way they would talk about like Phoenix almost.
Yeah.
And it was a different time.
you talk about a way to ruin Phoenix. Put individual lap bars on Phoenix. And
even the seatbelt. That would people would feel totally different about it, I think. I mean, you could always undo a seatbelt a little bit, but then you're breaking the rules.
Then you're if you let loose. We don't call it undoing the seatbelt, Jeff. In my runnings with my people, we call it letting loose.
I've never immediately let loose the seatbelt when I'm on like a ride like Jackrabbit or something like that.
You've never done that.
I've never ever done that. Immediately, as soon as it starts moving, I would never do that.
I tell you, Magnum's one that, you know what, there might be a few times where, we got a little airtime underneath that seatbelt too, where the seatbelt might be hitting me in the head, Millennium's another one where there's plenty of times where you're running seatbelt only. And that one, the seatbelt's keeping me in. The lap bar is not doing too much sometimes. So seatbelt only on Millennium. Oh man, there's some good stories, but I don't want to get people in trouble either.
No. Let's go beyond the statute of limitations here. I know you used to have Demon Drop, right?
Yeah.
I had Stuntman's Free Fall, and I loved it. And I love Demon Drop. You can't have that back. I would never put coins on my knees when I was a child and watch them hover in front of myself every single time I went on that ride. Never. I don't know anybody else who would have done that.
No, and I won't talk about things like people. No, not me, of course. People I've heard. People like on rides maybe like Skyhawk. Not pushing the lap bar down maybe at all. There's stories like that out there too that you don't know what's happening. It could be all urban legend for all we know, right? Like there's who knows what people do on their spare time, what people do when the park is not technically operating. But I tell you what, it's the other thing too is them slowing trains down with brakes brakes. The best, and I've said this before, you know what my favorite set of brakes on any roller coaster anywhere is? You know what it is? No. The ones that they installed on Millennium Force. I
didn't realize they had trims on Millennium Force.
It's funny because they have the bar there, but there's no brakes there anymore. That they said no bueno, and they said we are going to go full speed. And it's like you look at things like these B&M coasters, and it's like it slows you down. Like Danny was just looking at Candemonium. He's like, shit, I think they put some brakes on on this part of the ride.
It looks like there's like a service area and a bracket now where he was saying there was none. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, it's like shit, you know. It's like let the ride go, and there's always the urban legend of you know, the guys who built the beast and before they put all the brakes on it. That the misconception is it's a lot more brake today, but the beast always had many brakes. And at some of the coaster stocks I went to, you know, the guys would talk about how they rode it that first time and how they all thought they were going to die because it was going so fast through different stuff. Because there were no brakes the first time, and they were just flying through, you know, the whole course without all these brakes all over the place. It's like you can't, you know, breathe without a brake on the beast. But I tell you, wouldn't it be awesome to ride that without any brakes? Like, wouldn't it be awesome to ride, like I always said, Raging Bull? I have not had a completely trimless ride on that. And people have said, you know, they've ridden Raging Bull without the trims, and it is fantastic. Let the rides run at least maybe once a year. And and that's where I give like maybe Holiday World some credit, where during Hollywood Nights they let loose on the Voyage. And they say that they speed up the lift hills on the other ones too, on Legend and on Raven as well, to give it a little extra oomph over the top.
Little voiding the warranty. I think.
Give the people what they want sometimes. And sometimes, you know what? Turn those brakes off on Magnum. Oh, we can't do that. Yes, you can.
Well, then you need to hire a computer science major.
Well, seriously, like let's let these things run like they were designed to do. And I get that you can't do it all the time because it's going to tear itself apart. You know, it's going to hurt the train. It's going to hurt the ride. Okay, but maybe once a year. Let's find a time. Let's find a time once a year and let these things loose, I say. So
I'll give you $5 extra. You know, we'll get a whole train worth of $5 extra. We'll turn them off.
A little, you know, jellyfish action on Mean Streak, you know, or something like that. I don't know, some code. I need a code or something, you know. So I guess I'm saying, you know what, safety is fun. I hate some safety. The comfort collars just kill me, because I rode the Skyrocket Superman out at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom, and that thing is legit. Like, whoa, you hit that first pop up and you're like, oh, okay, hi, I'm here I am. And it's like, okay, this is fun, legitimately frightening on the first time you ride that. But you get to Tempesto, it's like, yeah, whatever. So some safety you can keep. I agree, we need to be safe, but the mindset of safety. We need some real like danger in our lives, I think. And there's some, and I don't want to have to go to the west side of Chicago to find it, you know.
Well, we need perceived danger.
Perceived danger, exactly.
Perceived danger.
Well, I guess that wraps up Sierra, right? Then anything else? So,
I'm not willing to admit to anything else.
I will tell no other stories about myself here. So, as always, I'm, of course, Andy Robarchak from Chicago, Illinois.
I'm Jeff Goodman from Long Island, New York.
Right on, Ride Warriors.
Good night.